Hello there, good day, and welcome to this episode of Rhtr, Forgetting How to Forget and Remembering How to Remember. I'm your host, Andy Christopher Bear. Today, we want to talk about something quite interesting. How many of you know what a comic book is? I'm sure most of you do. How many of you know that they are Nigerian comic books? Okay, I'm sure that most of you know that too. But what was your introduction to Nigerian comic books? What was the first ever Nigerian comic book you read? What was the first Nigerian comic character that you became endeared to? That's why this episode is coming to you today. You see, in the early 2000s, the Nigerian market was flooded with a particular comic book called Supa Strikas. It was new, it was fresh, it was exciting, and for the first time, we had a character with a Nigerian name that many Nigerians could relate to. And of course, the comic book was about football, which many Nigerians loved. And so, a lot of people were always happy to read issues to see Shekzokoro do the new bicycle kick or the new scorpion kick, or to do something completely outlandish in order to score the winning goal for his Supa Strikas. But what if I tell you that at the time, there were already Nigerian comic books being drawn, illustrated, and lettered and colored in the Nigerian underground? What if I tell you that as far back as the 90s and even the 80s, as we are going to see very soon, Nigerians were already making comic books and already had characters that Nigerians could relate to, just not the publicity. On this episode, we're going to find out how Nigerian comic books started as an industry and how it has grown, believe it or not, into a multi-million-dollar industry today. Our guest is one of Nigeria's foremost comic book makers. His name is Ibrahim Ganiyu, or Sagai, as many people know. He is actually the CEO of one of Nigeria's biggest comic book houses, and he's behind some of the most interesting and impressive comic book projects that Nigeria has to offer. I promise you, this is an episode where you will learn as much as you'll be intrigued. Let's listen to Ibrahim Ganiyu as we talk about the Nigerian comic book industry on this episode of Forgetting How to Forget and Remembering How to Remember.
Good day, viewers, and welcome to the Fhtf Rhtr podcast, Forgetting How to Forget, Remembering How to Remember. And today, we are here with, I don't want to look at him while I'm saying this because you may not like it, but we are here with a legendary figure. You would find out very soon. His name is Ibrahim Ganiyu. Some people know him as Sagai. He runs something called ICStudios. First of all, I should say at this point, before I let him come in, pick up a biro or a pen and pick up a piece of paper, because one of the things we do on this podcast is we learn. And so, ladies and gentlemen, let's learn from Mr. Ibrahim Ganiyu. Nice to meet you. Oh yes, so I'm happy to be inviting you here. First of all, we're here to talk about comic books. We're here to talk about Nigerian comic books, but we're here to talk about it the way we talk about it on the podcast. We want to draw back to how we have gotten here and where it's here, really. You know,
where it is here. It's a good question as well.
Where it's here, and trust me, there are very few people in this country that you can ask this question. He's one of them. There are about 3-4. I get. He may say more. He may say more. That's why we are here again. Pen and paper.
Yeah.
So, you were just talking when we started. Before we started this interview, you were talking about like a song and.
Oh yes, one of my all-time Nigerian inspirational song. You know, I mean, I've had a couple of songs like that in my head. I'll probably talk about the other one later, but this one gets to me all the time. I think maybe as a Nigerian, singing that song from back then reminds me of why it is great to be a Nigerian. It just makes me feel like, you know what? Yeah, I'm a Nigerian. I can do this. It's a song from the late 80s to 90s. It's like silence music. Nigeria is a strong country.
Yes, we are.
With abundant resources, she can hold her own, defend herself, and find the basic things of life. A peace-loving nation where everyone can share the dream of a better life. And it goes with the chorus. Join as we sing, there is reason to celebrate better living for all. Wow. With your contributions, Nigeria will grow stronger, better living for all.
Somebody else. and when you buy enough, I'm thinking they give you a free comic. And that was the first time we saw a Nigerian car. So you see somebody, his name is Sheikh, and like, oh, okay, somebody called Haruna. And you're like, oh, okay, these are, we had never seen. However, the reason you are here is because even before those people, there were comics in Nigeria.
Oh, there were comics. When you said super, I thought you would.
Oh, yes.
Another super.
Please take it away.
All right, okay. I mean, I grew up in the 80s with reading newspaper comic books. Gart.
Yeah.
Gart was in the Vanguard then, and it was one of the earliest comics that you encountered outside of the foreign comics with the Sword, Superman, the Batman, and all this there. But I think one of the earliest comics that was even there before was not actually a comic, was a photo storybook. Okay. Yeah, I think I can't.
How is it different from a comic?
Okay, in that instead of drawings, they had pictures, and then the pictures had word bubbles to say what the artists are talking about. So it's basically a Nollywood movie in pictures, but with word bubbles. So it was basically the earliest comics and all of that. And then there was, I think later on we had the Cable Super.
Yes,
that was as a series of drawings telling the story in panels and word bubbles. So the size became a standard, just like you have novels have the standard for distribution purposes and for display.
Oh, I see.
So it was a standard wasn't created in Nigeria. It was created by people who were Japanese.
So basically, it was a publication thing.
It was a publication thing to keep the size. Okay, you know what? Anything else other than this size, we'll call them comics, but maybe not comic book.
I see.
You understand? So you have a variety of comics in smaller sizes, in bigger sizes. Well, comic books had a standard size,
and that's what
has been on for a while. So when anything that doesn't fit into that size is considered not canon, so to speak.
Okay, yeah, I see.
So the size became a thing.
It became a thing. So I'm still going to stick to that Bible word you use, because this now comes to, and this is probably where we were. This is our last stop on the Supa Strikas issue, because there were a couple of things they did that endeared them to, first of all, it was something about football, which Nigerians like.
It was a major thing.
I remember then, seeing somebody doing a bicycle kick while his head was facing here. Love the head that out.
Yeah.
Take it to the hostel, go around, and stuff like that. Would you say that at the time, comic books in Nigeria were viable? Or would you say that was still the beginning of the process?
Okay. From then until now,
yes,
I held that belief and I'm still holding it today.
Okay.
Comic books in Nigeria, very, very viable.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing. I'll just divert a little bit.
Oh, please.
Now, back in secondary school, people talk about artists. Back when I was younger, a lot of parents don't want their children to be artists because there's a perception that artists are creative generally. Just don't make money. They're hungry to die poor and not to be hungry on the streets. So it caused me to actually investigate instead, and I found that the problem is not what the artists being an artist. The problem wasn't being an artist. The problem was what the artists were doing. Back in my secondary school, Disney was already a major name, and all the other Marvels and things were already major names. And so how is it that artists die poor if this guys were doing that? And two, everything around us is created by one artist or the other. The house has to be the clothes we wear, from the patterns around, from the environment. A lot of things that artists work with. So how is it that artists are parents often refer to artists as painters. You are the one painting on canvas, you are an artist. That's what artists meant to everybody back then. So the viability of comic books is due to one thing that we have and our own need. Yes. The capacity to educate and communicate. With one major factor that people don't know what is happening to them. Cultural preservation. With every comic book published ever, you can check the culture and the ideologies of the people in that era through the comic books. Because comic books educate. I tell you, I learned a lot about science reading the comic book. Yes. Yes, I learned a lot about history. I learned a lot about the culture of several other places in the world beyond my own through comic books. So it's like that's the tool. And with that, education doesn't go out of style.
Yes.
Culture doesn't go out of style. It just changes.
It even becomes more interesting.
When you do that, and then communication is always going to be in need. So I'm going to say something about Supa Strikas.
Yeah.
Just to make us clear. A lot of comic book artists in Nigeria won't even call Supa Strikas a comic book.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, the publisher came to an event, Lagos Comic Con, and
Ganiyu, most of what that's even if you even tell this way, that we still have to go back to the spandex, we still have to go back to the capes, we still have to go back to that. Was that just being homage, or was it?
No, this is the thing. It's more like there are certain things that you cannot do without the originator's content in mind. Yeah, that's right. There's no way you can make spaghetti without using spaghetti. That's right. So no matter what you add to it, put you in your spaghetti, put whatever else that Nigerian in your spaghetti, it's still spaghetti at the basis of it. So it's something that touched me personally. Creating my first character, Captain Nigeria, after Captain America. But then I found out that my Captain Nigeria was a mixture of Rambo, Captain America. They had long, flowy hair. He had a band around, they had big glasses and a cape and his captor. So I had the effrontery to name him Larry Thompson, with all his long, bloodish looking hair and everything. So, but something got me over the years that, comic books are foreign to us.
Yeah.
Storytelling is what Africans do. Mm-hmm. We have been telling stories since forever, and I know that. But then comic books are a different way to do storytelling.
Yeah.
African storytelling was oral and mental visual. You have to create the images in your mind. But here was something that was physically visual.
And you could look at
it and read the story. So, but something I noticed, maybe this is why I tell people I'm not a fan of comic books. I'm a producer.
Okay.
So I don't see it from the point of what I like, what I don't like. I see it from the point of what it is and what it works. What is all about. That's why a fan will say, I like Superman. And I know Superman is fine. But the producer will say, Superman, what does Superman mean? What does it say? What's the background? What does Superman become? And all of that. So I read those comics back then, and I think something changed me. Like, I cannot tell the story of New York better than someone living in New York. Nobody can tell the story of Lagos better than me living in Lagos. Why would somebody tell the story about Nigeria better than me? A full-blooded, bred Nigerian. So at that point I said, you know what, I'm going to tell and create characters tied into Nigeria. And I think that thing got along to other people. But our influence would always be the Superman, spandex.
Yeah.
So that's always at the back of our mind, no matter what.
Not to cut you short, because I still want you to go on that, but you said the influence, because when we were talking about Rambo, and I remember that in Rambo Commando, the so is it that, and I mean, this is something that African people or black people all over the world have to contend with, because we kind of find it difficult to find heroes in our history, specifically because we did not write our history,
specifically because we did not look into our history. What I found out is I think I spent more time in the library than I did on the playground in secondary school.
Oh, okay.
By the time we even got close to publishing our own book, some guys already done amazing things in Ibrahim. Captain Ekomog, Epic Comic Books, Epic Comic, Captain Nigeria, and the Green Book comic book were already coming from Ibrahim. There's a community building in Ibadan, and then they brought that in as sort of like, wow, guys, we're on the right track. So if we're in Ibadan doing this. So basically, we were able to connect, because the more we did what we did, the more we saw connections from other communities. Somebody heard something, traveled somewhere, told somebody, and then, oh, these guys are in Lagos. Yes, I'm in Lagos, I'm going to find them out. And then, so we got to see. And I think that's what led to the first Lagos Comics and Cartoons Carnival.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, before the Comic Con,
yes.
I think 99, 2000.
Wow.
99, 2000. I'll try to Ibrahim and Sewadol Powaku. Sewatronica. They were. In fact, Sewatronica was one of my inspirations because it was one of the earliest people I saw doing digital coloring.
Oh.
I was like, man, this is possible. We're not doing black and white again. We're not doing hand colors again. We're doing that. So, Lagos Comics and Cartoons Carnival was the first gathering of everybody who loved comics. It was part of, there was a festival that was done by the theater group or something. I think there was a theater, something, what's the Cora?
Okay.
Cora used to have this festival, so part of it was...
The Cora what?
No, not Cora, COR, the Community of Relevant Arts.
Okay.
The Relevant Arts in Africa. So they had this show that they do every year. It was at Onicon then, and then Lagos Comics and Cartoon Carnival was a section of it. So where anybody that had comic books to sell or comic books art to draw just showed up there. We had tables, and it was the first time we had showcase comic books. Thankfully, we had published in 1999. So by 2000, we had a fresh episode of our comic books, and we were there. You know, it was an interesting community, but it was really
okay. So, and a lot. So, you mentioned something that I'm hoping I don't forget. So let me write it down. Right.
No, I remember it.
1999. But a lot of you who started at the time are still here today. Like a lot of you are still the leaders of the industry today. That's a long, if you think of it, 10 years is a long time.
Oh, that's a long time.
You know, like 10 years is different between using an Alcatel and using an iPhone.
Yeah, Alcatel. That's ideal. This is something of a band.
Yeah, so I'm trying to imagine, like, that must have been a lot of staying power, because what was keeping it going during that period? And I'm talking say 2000 to 2010.
Wow.
What was keeping it going?
Those were, I mean, my crew and I, we started in the LLM, that's in the late 90s. You understand? So by 97, 98, we're already seeing communities and people around. And then what kept us going is one thing: the passion for creating stories. Nothing beyond that. The idea is that a lot of people have different ways of telling the story, but the idea of we could actually do this. You know, I think what was a breakthrough for a lot of us that were doing it is this. People felt like, you mean I can actually take a pen and paper and produce what Disney or what Marvel or DC them. I'm like, I can do this, and then it became something. Anybody that saw what that could draw even a little, be a part of what we were doing. So what people doing was the passion and the dream, saying one day we're going to get this published. We are going to create an industry out of
Industry like that. And
I know in the early 2000s we had a link with these daily newspapers. Somebody brought us a page that we could showcase our comic books.
wow,
So every week.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, well, a big deal. And he gave us our very first 4-page interview. This newspaper. And I remember he even asking us then, why are we doing this, guys? Why? I mean, what is this? What's this getting for us? And my answer was very simple, like, because if we didn't, our children are going to ask us, Papa, why didn't you do this? Like, there was going to be a question of, you could have, you didn't. Why? So it was more like the mandate was, we needed to do this because it can be done and it must be done.
That's it.
So I think that was the passion.
Okay. I would like us to talk about the second wave, but I'll keep this for now, because I actually want you to teach us a bit, because you told us, for example, that you were in the late 90s going to 2000s. Please give us just a Sell yourself. You mentioned Dark Age, for example. Yes. A lot of people don't know. It's a cult classic.
The thing about Dark Age is, and I'm looking back today, I'm meeting people today in comic books who are telling me that they started drawing comic books after they saw Dark Age.
Yes.
And I'm like, one guy, one of them is publishing a comic book for me right now. He's in the US, publishing a comic book for me right now. And he told me specifically, look, he started drawing once he saw that thing, and this is what got him into comics in the first place. So I'm like, okay, thank you very much. and all that. But so going back, see, from those days, one of the things that was happening was, I think building the communities we did allowed us to explore and educate ourselves. So because we gave ourselves the goal of saying we must do this, it became, how do we do this that it will be us, that it will be different? So we stopped trying to tell stories that was more about superheroes come from a different planet. And I'm like, wait, Africa had spiritism, it had spiritual elements in what we were talking about. And then somebody actually said this.
And not just the dark kind.
And not just the dark kind. And even back when we were growing up, there was always the dark and the light.
Yes.
You understand? Anybody who knows Kotoru or one other TV show like that, you know there was a white witch and a black witch. You know, when you have Rishabumi and then you have Fadi Yoluru and everything, there was always the dark versus the light. That's the story, eternal story of history.
Yeah.
Right. So it was a case of why can't we inculcate that or those things and present it in a way that is modern? Because when you look at it, Harry Potter is a wizard.
Of course, yeah, he is.
I mean, on brooms, you know, they have brooms and everything. The entire
don't hide anything at all.
The entire witchcraft was out there. So how is it? I mean, that is okay, maybe because our presentation was not palatable to a lot of people. So it's like we that own the culture. The presentation is not palatable to us. So why can't we take what our culture is? Everything that we render as from outside is presented in a sweet way, so that we can easily swallow it.
So can digest it.
I mean, Harry Potter sounds like somebody you want to learn from or grow into and all of that. So why can't I grow up to be an Orishabumi, walk into an Abidjawara kind of person? And so we started telling the stories differently. And that means we have to research. We have to go back and read up on our culture and our history. And the more we did that, everybody else that joined us, guys, you can't keep that Superman mindset. You have to keep the Nigerian mindset. Go into Hausana, go into Igboland, go into Yoruba, find out what you can find. So the point that we're trying to create and find Nigerian names for everything we're creating. It became that. So for us, it was that, and then we saw that we're not the only one thinking that way, but our came. Maybe had this Captain Nigeria versus the Sunrise character, a robot that was created during the Civil War, Nigerian Civil War, and then but the war ended, and then they left it on the ground, so it was abandoned. But then in the 1990s, 2000s, the robot activated again, forgetting that there was no Civil War again. And so it went back to Abuja, but back to fulfillment. So that story was like, whoa, you get that? I like that. This is a beautiful story. This robot was actually a cyborg that contained a particular soldier, and at the end of the day, they had to convince him that look, the war is over. Nigeria is won now. We're okay. We're good, and all of that. And then you had Green Eagle, you had Champion, who was an embodiment of every generation. A champion is chosen by some gods in Nigeria, and then he's the champion that was chosen, and all of that. So we have that. Like, yes, people in the right track.
The story of Dark Age is almost the picture of what the Nigerian comic book industry is. You know, people are enthusiastic. People want to do things.
Yeah.
They start it, then they do one,
and that is it.
And they're like, man.
They see the reality of what
it's not track, you know, and then you just let it go. So, like, please tell us that process. Why? How did it? What happened? Why did you not come out with issue 2 and then issue 3? Like this.
2 things I'll talk about. The first one is answering that. The second one is a lesson I learned later. That I think everybody should pay attention to. The first one is the fact that I think for most comic book artists and creators in Nigeria, what drives is the passion. The idea that you know what Superman is very popular. I have my own character be very popular. But there was a lot that went into Superman being popular. Superman is over 80 years old before you understand. So I realized if that is the case, it was going to take a while for everyone to make a living out of drawing comics. So when we published Dark Age, we realized, okay, fine. So we sold out, in quotes, but we still didn't make money. There was a lot of money tied up in logistics. You put the comic book somewhere, by the time you spend the money to go and collect the money for the comic books, it's already gone. There was a lot of money spent on pushing people, trying to get. There was even a lot of the ways to make sure the comic book reach as many as possible. And then it was after putting the money together for the first issue, getting it out, that you realize you're getting money for the second issue. And then it becomes a case of, you know how bad it was or how hard it was to get that first one. Where are we going to? How are we going to do the second one again? So, and then life was so insecure. But at the time I was in Yaba Tech, I was in the second year, and school had gotten hot, you know, and then money requirement has already been required for someone who saw himself through school. It was the case of, you know, when jobs come through, you have to have other things to do. So it became a case of how do we source for funds for the shoot. Yes, we can draw it, but we need to print it and distribute it. So it's going to cost a lot of money. And then that took a while until people got jobs that paid well enough to say, no, I can drop 10K, or I can drop 5K, or I can drop, and then we put that together. The second edition, when we got our first issue printed back in color cover, standard comic book size this time, it was like 3,000 naira. Yeah, I remember, and then it was badly printed. Because printers didn't know anything about comic books printing. So they weren't exactly sure what to do with the files we gave to them. So I time it was printer, I was kind of like, what is going on here?
You just
press print and the thing went. So we had to reprint, and by that time we were working. But working also meant that we had less time.
Yes.
So actually do the comic books and on that. So as less and less time was available to do the comic books, less and less money was pumped into it, and less comic books was published. You know, and it's an insight that I've had over the years that I realized that keeping a monthly publication up is not easy anywhere, even outside of the country.
True.
Because I looked at the history and I realized that Marvel and DC, the giants of the publishing, had gone bankrupt twice,
Of course.
each.
That's very good.
So and then it shocked me when I read through that. Why would a big company go bankrupt? And I realized most of the time they were working on losses. Adverts weren't coming in, but comments had to be published. So somewhere along the line, they were paying to produce comic books they didn't have the money for. That's what happened to the big ones. So now imagine all small publishers printing our 1,000 copies
With much less
history and all of that. So there was really no support for distribution. That was the key thing. Distribution cost us a lot of money. Because abroad they had distribution companies who signed up for the comic book before they printed.
they have bookstores, which is another thing that we will
So there's a comic store then will say, DC, I'm going to take 100 copies of your Superman #1. The Batman days, and then Marvel and all people. So they know that at least 200 copies is going straight to so and so stores from the beginning before they even go to press.
So you can have a bestseller before you
even finish printing. Yeah. So there was already that structure for them because they've been doing it for way longer years than we had. But we had to bootstrap everything. We had to do the distribution ourselves, find out the stores that would take it. And then even the stores that would take it, most of the time they put our magazines, companies at the back of their bestsellers. So if you want to make their money
look for it,
you have to go and look at it. And then if we're going to look for it, we have to advertise. And where is the money? So money became a factor, distribution became the second factor for the industry then. And it affected every company that published since that time. True. And I say this, I think it was 2 days ago, I said, I have not made an actual profit from making comics since I was making it. Not ever directly. One thing that I realized, that was the second part of what I wanted to say.
Yes.
Is that the lesson was that I realized it when I think Marvel sold to Disney. Yeah, that's when it hit me. Marvel described itself as a character-based entertainment company, not a comic book publishing.
I see.
So I realized that comic books then were just advertising for the other things they could sell. So basically, comic book was to tell everybody about Superman. You can go read about Superman. However, the real thing they were selling was the T-shirts or
the science.
That was the real money, the movie.
I see.
It's easier to sell movie
But it's easier to sell a Superman shirt than to sell Superman comic.
You understand? The comic book is $10, and then you realize that my meal this morning is $10.
Can you choose the meal?
But if it's a T-shirt, say at least
I'm gonna wear that shirt.
You're going to go like the summer. So, but one time reach the finish. No. So it became a choice, and then I realized even them, as they are big companies, they didn't know that this was the effect. That's what caused them bankruptcy, because they were trying to sell comic books. So even their best-selling comic books was not profitable.
I see.
What became profitable was stickers, posters, T-shirts, merchandise they could sell based on that comic book. An animated story they could sell based on that issue. So the not is that maybe we are trying too hard to make money from selling comic books. That is not the real money source. So your characters are your money as a comic book publisher. The more people know your character, the easier it is for you to sell other aspects of that character, which is what Supa Strikas also got right. Because the character was everywhere. The name was everywhere and for literally free. And then they could make money in other words. So I think that's the lesson that I learned that I think is still we're gradually getting to today. It was a case of the industry is not going to give you anything to you. Create the need for it.
Okay, so this is very educative. So right now in Nigeria, you have two major industries. You have the Western guide, and then we have our Asian brothers who do the manga and anime. What I found interesting, and I think I had this conversation with Olayemi Aojo. He said that most of those so for example the first issue of Superman did not just come out 6 pages Superman. No, it came out, it was Superman in it, there was Batman on the other side, there was this person, and that became even more pronounced because when we started to see manga, it used to come out in issues. So you would have Naruto, the Bleach, very popular, but they won't just give you Naruto. Yeah. They will give you a whole volume.
Just like 2018.
Exactly. So maybe this should be how we segue to this. I don't want us to talk a little bit about right now globally, but I think we should start here. Which is pen and paper again. Where is the Nigerian comic book industry now?
Okay, the first thing I would say is a lot of people are going to say something about this. There's no industry. Yeah, definitely there. The thing is that where is the industry in the first question? And an industry has figures, has facts, has data. You can actually quantify the industry and all that. So presently we have a community that is growing and might just be an industry in due time. But presently it isn't. Industries will have standard rates. How much is the current page? Who said, look, this is in the industry, the value of this will be able to give us figures. We need a lot more of those people in the room. And that was the one thing that Supa Strikas had. There were accountants in the room. True. There were accountants in the room. It was not just about creativity.
Yes. Yeah. Because I remember, so I had the chance to be a speaker at one of the conventions, and I remember there was something I said. I said, there is really no comic book in Nigeria now, I can tell you, that they will publish a title at 1,000 copies.
No.
Which is strange because there are so many.
Yeah.
And there are so many avenues where you can actually do that, but they cannot give you the data and say, okay, we are sure that by the time this comic book is coming out, we have
2,000 copies.
Yes, we have 1,000. And I wonder, is that a problem with the fact that there's no data, or is it that we have not found a cultural approach? Because I believe that these things they grow from one another, right?
Yeah.
When you tackle this problem, it will create a problem that can give you a solution that you can do. And I feel like on some level we have left that, which will now bring me to something else, which is right now in the Nigerian comic book industry, you guys who are the leaders are kind of leaving comic books behind. In fact, the accusation is
the guys just left, just abandoned.
Exactly. So you guys are studios now. Not so much comic houses. Like, what would you say to that?
Okay, I'm going to take it first from what you said earlier on about this 1,000 copies being sold.
Yes.
A friend of mine did a research recently and found that a larger percentage of Nigerians will not be willing to pay for a comic book. They don't want to pay for any comic book. Right? They would rather get it for free. And a lot of people who are paid for comic books are unsatisfied with what they paid for the cost. A friend of mine paid 3,000 naira thereof for a comic book that was barely 10 pages. Yes, and then the story was no way. You understand? And all that. And he felt cheated. He said he had to call the company back and said, look, I think I deserve some refund for this. So there is that fact that it goes back to what I said earlier regarding the fact that comic books are not where you count your money from. And this is where the studios come in. And this is one thing that I think if we had a lot more people in the industry or community now, listening to people like us talk about these things, they can correct some of these things right away. And it will make room for better collaborations. We have gotten to a situation where we realize that, you know what, everything I've done since I published Dark Age is due to Dark Age, but not from Dark Age. So I have made profits due to Dark Age, but not from Dark Age.
Oh, I see.
So basically, the studio.
So you have open doors.
Yeah.
But itself is almost a dead end.
There's one agency somewhere, the comic book guy saw Dark Age. I was like, this guy can do a storyboard. Call. So the company gets storyboard projects. Oh, they do their graphics very well. Look, can they do posters for us? Call. And we're doing graphics. So the comic books actually got us the jobs we are getting. From posters, illustrations, children's books. So I've been working with two of Nigeria's major publishers since I was in school over 20 years ago. Wow. We're still working with them to date. So, and all because somebody saw that and I was like, wait, you guys publish this? Okay now, so can you do this for us? And it became that. So, the thing is, first, I think, even for people like Nicole and DC, the comment of those movies changed everything. Of course. For them. It kind of made them, it was I'll call it the realization of, oh, this is what we've been missing for years for all of them. Like, so it became a thing of, now they realize that the comic books was the introductory brochure to the merchandise and the movies and everything they could sell. So they realized that one, audience-wise, you could reach a lot more people with movies than you could with comic books. You know, a lot of people will be looked at differently when they're reading comic books, like, oh, you're just a nerd, you're just reading it. But then the same set of people will go and watch Iron Man movie. I'm telling them. You understand? They have no idea who Iron Man is, but then they enjoy the movie and like, this guy is the super suit.
And then God forbid you tell them that's not how it is in the comic.
That movie good. What are you talking about? So it became a thing when they now realize you can actually get more people reading the comic books by making the movie about the comic book. That's true. So, I mean, a lot of people didn't know too much about it. Even I know Iron Man, but I didn't know Iron Man in that familiar way, like I knew Superman or Spider-Man.
Oh, that's true.
Until that movie. And all of a sudden, for me, the actor in that Iron Man movie, Robert Downey Jr., is Iron Man. You understand? So you have that influence, and that came in. Now, more artists and more creators in Nigeria are realizing that, okay, so this is where our characters, our titles can actually get to and become something that is broader. And I see a little problem that even with that realization people are still holding on to. First, you realize that you can reach a lot more people. Yet, you are creating something that only you like. You get that situation where we are creating more titles, more stories, more ideas sometimes where it is basically you think it's a great idea and not exactly what the public might want to attach to. Because ultimately, the thing that makes your product appealing is a communication between you and your audience. You understand? It has to be something. Okay, for instance, I use this example when I'm teaching it. If I come in now and start speaking things to you in German, sure, I'm saying something that makes sense in German. But if you don't understand German, it's like, why is this man talking to me in this strange language? So for us to communicate, there has to be that. You know English, I know English, okay, so when I say this word, you already know the word and it connects. The same thing goes for whatever we're creating in comic books. There has to be some level of, you guys know this, imagine this like this. And that is the story that I can now relate to that, okay, Iron Man, okay, we know robots exist, we know suits can exist, but if a man is inside, oh yeah, that makes sense, I can put, that's why it's Iron Man, okay. So it's that connection that a lot of people are. So people see that, they are seeing that right now, and something else is changing. Because the more we see these comic book movies, the more we realize that the stories are emptying out, right? And they too are looking for more stories to tell, and oftentimes they are just repeating the same stories and all that. And then came the African boom with Black Panther.
Oh yes.
The Black Panther, I mean, sorry. Black Panther came in as the African Renaissance, so to speak, in the comic book industry. So all of a sudden, people are thinking, oh my God, they are Africans, they could do this, they could do that. And then it became, the world is not focusing on African content.
Contemporary story, yeah.
So, which has led to a stronger shift in African comic book producers renaming characters into more African names.
Oh.
We have had a larger resurgence of things like Ireti, Malaika, Iwaju, Iyanu. Since that time, a lot more of us are trying to name our titles based on the Africanness they are, because it's more appealing. And this is something we've been talking about for years. The fact that, look, you cannot be more American than the American, more European than the European. You have to be Nigerian. This is the only thing they will appreciate about you. They want you to walk into their country with your agbada,
Of course.
so that they can say, oh, what's that? What's that from? You're from Nigeria. What's that in your country? And all of that. Not you walking in a suit and look like one of them.
I've seen suits.
Yeah, I've seen suits. They have better suits. What are you talking about? So it's the Renaissance is starting. We have a lot more Africans creating titles and stories that are rooted in African culture and African stories. Manu, the Dark Age Renaissance, Little Thunder, Zoo of Shango. Several stories are coming out like that with the Africanness. I've been named an African thing. It goes back to something I think Tunde Kelani told me many years ago when I talked about doing a comic book movie or a comic book in English. I was like, why do it in English? Do it in Yoruba. Let them go and be reading
The subtitles.
like we used to do for Indian and Chinese.
Yeah, that's how we do.
That's how we do manga and anime.
We don't even like the English
Versions. We want to watch it in the Japanese logo. So
See,
there's that renaissance now. It's become a case of we will speak Yoruba, you go and learn what it means. We will speak Edo, we will speak Hausa, we will speak Igbo, you go and learn what it means. And so it's what is creating now that there's a direction of the whole world looking at Africa like, okay, what content do they have?
like you tell your stories now. Let's hear.
So now a lot more Africans are getting, more Nigerians in the comic book industry here are researching, going back into their culture, into their history, and bringing out stories from there, bringing out mysteries and turning it into superheroes, hidden gems or historical facts and modifying it a little bit. You understand? I know for a while I went into the literary circle in Nigeria because I felt a lot of creative industries are disconnected. Right? I'm a comic book artist, but we have writers who publish novels in Nigeria and they don't know the comic book artists. So I went into their midst and talked to a lot of them. I realized they have stories that could make excellent comic books.
Yes.
There's one about the history of Nigeria changed from 1977, or the year that Rhtr Muhammad was shot.
Okay.
The guy wrote a story and said he survived the assassination.
Ooh.
It just took it from that point that he survived that assassination. Yes, he was injured. Yes, he was wounded. He survived. And then Nigeria changed. From that point, it just changed to a new story called To St. Patrick's, the title of the book. I love that book. I said, this is a great comic book in itself. You understand? So, and there's that story, MK Abela was still alive, Babangida was a civilian doing into politics and all that now. Mutababa was now a civilian government president after many years of retirement. There was a lot of things in there. Everyone was driving Nigerian cars. Pure Nigerian cars, and everything was very different. So it was a fantasy story. There are several other writers that I met like that. So I think a lot more of us are getting into that cultural renaissance, trying to get our stories to be more African, more Nigerian, more
The spotlight is there now.
The spotlight is there right now. So now the only thing that I think we can expect is going forward now, I expect to see a lot more comic book titles with African and Nigerian sounding names. A lot more of them will there, even if they are going to be in English. The English should be taken from an African nice words and all of that. And there will be a lot more of those dramatic cultural stories around, even in the superhero spectrum in the field. You understand?
That's interesting because it's so interesting to hear this from you because you are so in, because my comic book, for example, or my graphic novel, started Abai. Yes, it's we used to say that in secondary school. I remember it was the slang that we used to use. So it came from the Yoruba term Abai.
Okay.
Abai. You know, so and I mean when I was doing Abai. Because of Sleep Trader, Abai, In Search of Mr. John, and Abai, Legend of the Three Metal. And I remember when I was coming up with the story, I never thought that Abai was something, because I was the kind of person who I wrote a whole novel in Pidgin. I haven't published it yet.
Now that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's
definitely like
a whole novel in Pidgin. It was about a guy who was like an investigator. Something happened in prison. And so we brought him from to find out what happened. A lot of prisoners escaped, but he was looking for one particular prisoner, so we're trying to understand what his issue was. And now that you say that the spotlight is looking, there is something that I think, I would say why I think it's a problem. Then I would ask you a question after. I think it's a problem in the sense that we always tend to look for external value. And I think that's a problem that we need to work, because Nigeria has, as pro-Nigerian as I am, the one Nigerian problem I know I can point and hold in my hand, not government, not the one I know I can hold is we do not have a value system. Right? Somebody is owing you for you do a job for somebody. The person wants to find out the best way to not pay you. Yeah. The person wants to find out the best way and do you a favor instead of giving you the money. You know. The person wants to know why you think you are worth this amount. You just know. Yeah. And you've even touched on that in different ways. But then I think what I want to ask is, what do you think is the one thing that the most important ingredient in the Nigerian comic book or in Nigerian creative space? I'm presenting to be passion.
See, passion. When you grow older, you realize something about passion, that it's something that should come after you have set something set and straight. The publisher for Supa Strikas said, don't go with your passion first. Go to make the money, then let the money follow your passion. And my experience has taught me that a lot of times passion is great, passion is beautiful. However, passion without coordination, without the kind of reward system, would always lead you to being frustrated with your passion. You understand? Okay, you're a photographer, you just want to take good pictures, but you need a camera that's costing 2 million naira to take very good pictures. How you get the 2 million naira? If there's somebody funding you the 2 million and you're not making anything back, very soon that 2 million is going to stop.
Yes.
So your passion is good, but practicality needs to set. And so now here's the thing. You said something about the value system, about external validation.
Yeah.
That was a thing. And I think it's still a strong thing, but a lot more people need to realize that we have enough within us to actually make things happen. And the best way to start that is to start valuing what we have. I mean, if you're holding diamond and you don't think it's diamond, somebody can come and look at you and say, you know what, I like that stone in your hand. Can you give it to me for free? Because you yourself don't even know the value, what it is. And then you take it and walk away. So it said, a lot of people are talking to me now. I think maybe some of my students, some of the people that I mentored, and people that have actually been moving to that I hear from. I said, look, they are not looking for a foreign Western contracts to make their work global. Okay. That more and more people are trying to say, you know what, we can do this thing. We can make this thing happen with ourselves. And that starts with increasing that value of what we have within the country itself, within our own culture. And it's a mindset change for a lot of people, because if I tell you the number of people I talk to who basically have that, you know what, there's nothing out of Nigeria, there's nothing that can come out. I think I remember my answer to one guy who said that. Said nothing good can come out of Nigeria. Said, does that include you? So the guy kept quiet for a while, because so that means
great question.
You too, Abi. Yes. I mean, if you say you're good and you're out of Nigeria, so
why do you not think that?
So anything good can come out of Nigeria, and I feel a lot of good things are in Nigeria. It was one of the primary reasons that mindset changed. Ibrahim created a character called June 12, right? Okay. Now, June 12 was a character created and looked that up regarding hope, regarding a mindset change. Because I remember one of the arguments in the story is that the story man that was saying these police people said they are doing this, they are doing that, they are doing this. And someone in the bus just said, so I guess we should just cancel police force completely and move them from the streets. There was a pause in the bus. Like, I mean, they're useless. What's the point they are doing?
Since you don't want to see anybody.
I mean, for them just remove them. And then the guy posted the question, like, you realize that being a policeman is a difficult job. You would expect them to run towards the problem that you are running away from.
And they are not being paid as much as you are being paid.
You are hustling to become that billionaire. Can a policeman have the ambition
aspire to be
a
multi-millionaire?
You can't even think about that. And somehow we think that they have no value. Like this, there are bad eggs, there are bad people everywhere. In your church, in your mosque, there are bad people there. So for you to think because one person in the church, in the mosque means everybody there is bad, no. So there's that system of value that needs to change. And I think it's gradually changing. Disagreements with government make people think, you know what, I just have to be on my own, do things by myself. But if you have no value, you can't do things by yourself.
True.
So the fact that you're able to do something by yourself means that there is value in you, and what you create has value. So we are working in that industry right now, in the Nigerian comic industry. A lot of people are beginning to realize that what we have, our history, our culture, the magic, the mystics,
Yes.
the mysteries of what we're doing is absolutely valuable, and people want it. And they are angry because they can't tell those stories the way we can. And so that means we need to make sure we sell it to them properly. And you say, if you're going to take this story and do it, I'm going to be the creative director of this project. You are not going to just take and go and change the story and turn over and do something else. It must be there. So the value system is changing. We're getting value for what we do. We're beginning to think more about the value of what we do. And I see that maybe with more effort, we can achieve a lot more in that regard. It's still in its infancy, but you understand? But it's changing.
But it's going to get there.
It's going to get there. So is that changing that I like? So we're beginning to value that more. We're going to say, you know what? Internally, we can do things. Let me get a key example for these guys.
Oh, yes.
To show that a lot more people are beginning to think less about me, and going to we, and creating better value. My studio, ICStudios, is being published by another studio.
Oh,
yeah. Little Thunder is a collaboration between two studios. Basically, they have their own slew of publications and all that, and then they're publishing. And there are several titles they will publish. I'm still publishing my own thing.
Yes.
I'm publishing a lot of stories on that, and I'm willing to have as many people as possible
to have this kind of.
In fact, if we have only 3 studios in Nigeria that are publishing everything,
you don't mind.
Be your studio that creates but doesn't publish, and then there's a publishing studio that publishes and sells and distributes. I am more inclined into that. I don't want to print my comic. I don't want to produce and distribute it. I want another studio
You want to
to grow that track record so that they can focus on publishing and distributing. And that, I think, is where a lot of us as creative people need to actually get into collaborations. Situations where you stop that navigator. The worst thing you can do is sign a contract. Let the person know that, look, whatever you're getting from this, I'm getting that.
Yeah, 30% and 60%.
And there's something goes on. A little anecdote story. I knew a group of friends who had an album a while back.
Yeah.
The album was great. I mean, I loved it. It was good. And they went to Alaba, and somebody offered them ₦1 million to take the album off them, and they refused. I remember telling them, guys, up until this morning, they have an offer of ₦1, talk less of ₦1 million. Take it. The next album is not going to be ₦1 million.
Of course, you can do 10.
But what you need to do is get out there. Once you get out there, once you have published them, it becomes easier to do a lot of things. And that's what is wrong with a lot of our publishers, our creators these days.
They rather hold on
to that 0%
yes.
than 20% of 100.
Yes. Which is so. I
see where that is. Yeah.
And it's interesting you use this because the next question I was going to answer. I mean, I have two. The last one is going to be the admonishment. But there's this question I need to ask, which is, let's assume one of our watchers now has always wanted to make a comment.
Okay.
What is the A to Z
of
making a comment?
Okay. I'm not going to go to financial, so I just talk about the process.
Oh yes, process.
First thing is the idea.
Okay.
That's always the core thing, and then don't stop at the idea with just yourself.
Yeah.
Discuss with friends. Back it up with research. Back it up with something that you can say it is beyond you. An idea is as simple as saying a man got his powers from being fed too much gari, and then sugar poured on him and lightning struck him, and now his body is all sugar.
Yes.
Now, so that's a good idea. But that idea is nothing without the next step, which is the story. When people buy comic books or read comic books, it's the story that drives them. There are a lot of comic books out there that the art is zero, but the story is why people are picking. So the story has to be okay. So the first thing is to make sure that you have the idea and then tell that story in an engaging way that will make somebody want to read and throw it around. Let somebody else read it besides you. which is something a lot of people don't do.
Yes.
Then somebody else read it. Don't worry, somebody can steal your idea the last 2 minutes a long time ago. So let your ideas be known, let the story be out there, find people you trust, let them read the ideas to you. Then the next step will be to get it drawn. And please understand that you don't have to publish in color.
Okay.
You don't have to publish in color. You don't have to produce your first comic book in color. In fact, you don't even have to make it 20 pages. So if you want to get your story out, get your story minimum 5 to 10 pages. Get the story drawn in black and white and then tease it. If you are thinking about selling the comic book the first time out, you can try. But my best advice would be to share the first 5 pages for free. We have the internet right now. A long time ago, you couldn't do that. You had to physically print and go to people and give them. But now you can actually have people sample your first 5 pages to tell you if they will be willing to buy your 10 pages.
Yes.
You understand? I know a guy who published a book after sharing his stories, like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 online, and then by chapter 4, he had a book. So there are several models for that. One of that is the freemium. You give people the free ways to read, and then once they read that, let them even like itself. What is the idea that you have had? Remember that idea we talk about the story? You might all think it's wonderful until it gets out into the world and then somebody says, oh, why is that guy like?
Makes sense.
So you just realize that back to the drawing board. So let people read, let it to the wild world. And you'll be surprised before you have to do the full release, somebody else will pick it up and say, can we publish the full book? We don't think that it works like that, but the first thing is to get it written, get it drawn. Whether you partner with an artist, it doesn't have to be the best artist in the world, please. I'm an advocate for illustration, not for replication of reality. So you are illustrating means you are representing reality, you are not replicating it, okay? So even if you're using stick figures, I have read comic books that the drawing goes nowhere, but the storyline is engaging. So the first thing is to make sure that you get the storyline working. Work with an artist, a young brother somewhere who knows how to draw small. Anybody who is willing to work with you or even co-own the character, that's the one thing you might want to do.
That's a big thing.
I am doing a lot of that right now with all the characters I've created. I have a writer who are co-creating 3 projects right now.
One person owns it.
We own the characters equally.
That's not easy to do.
Here's the thing. I think one episode of Creator That we did was about selling your babies. As a creative person, your ideas are your babies.
Of course.
But the funny thing is, your babies are useless when they stay in the house.
Yes, they are.
They have to go out into the world. They can't just hang around. If your child is not valuable until he starts to work, make some money, and is creating value for himself, that is when it can be valuable to you. But if you say my son must not go anywhere, covered in the house, nowhere, just hold it. They are not going anywhere. So it's to get creative people to be creative and not be gatekeepers of their own success.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, your ideas are your babies, but your babies are for the world.
That's why you did them anyway.
That's why you did them. It's not for just you. If you want to just create for yourself, keep it in your bedroom, let everybody else know. But if you're creating for the world, then you have to let it out. So be free and willing to share ownership of these ideas. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is what it is today because a group of people, a couple of guys, 2 guys just said, they just do something. They did it. Even Superman is a collaboration.
Oh yeah.
Yes, sir. It was just one artist, one writer, and they just came and brought it down. So we don't have Superman today, not for that collaboration. We're willing to share the ownership because therein lies the connection for success. We're willing to share that idea. All right? The one that is yours, if you have created a good one with somebody, I'm sure you can create another one by yourself.
So when you get the illustration done and you get what comes next?
Now, publishing has become easier.
Okay.
So to the internet and everything, you can self-publish. You can do a cover and have it even available in print, with print to other websites and things. You can have it as digital file download that people can pay for to read online or download and all of that. So publishing has become democratized right now. And that's like, I told you the story of how we had to go to the show to try and get comics to publish our comics. That was how difficult it was then. They physically had to be there. But now I have published books for people. I think ICStudios published a poetry book for someone. I was going to recommend you read this book, Foreign and Other Stories.
Forever and that story.
Yes, there's a pigeon story that I think you will love.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when you said the pigeon, I was like, okay, that's a book you should read. So there are I publish books without having to have the capacity of publishing houses.
Yes.
You understand? Digitally and physical are published, and I've also published my own personal stuff digitally as well. So it is easier than it used to be. There are websites out there where you can put your comic book in to get readership. Web comics, webtoons, even Instagram is your best friend, and all that. There are a lot of places you can put this comic book to just get the world to know. And if you want to sell it, there are several platforms in Nigeria and outside Nigeria that sell them.
Yeah.
Fhtf is a Nigerian-based company that actually sells comic books from Nigerian publishers.
But that's true.
So there you see things like that all over. So publishing is the least of the problem.
But getting it,
That story, that creation, and that acceptance of the public is the key thing. Unless you want to go the way we went back in the days and just publish and hope that you make something.
it's good for us to learn.
So now, I think, okay, that says a lot about what I say to people regarding the history of things.
Yeah.
Comic books didn't get where it is right now because they started yesterday. Well, however, anybody that wants to join the comic book train doesn't have to go to the first bus stop.
Of course.
You can join it at the bus stop it's in
Where it's in.
right now,
And then
learn from there.
learn.
So we're in that position. It's publishing, not a problem. Just make sure your story is good enough.
Fantastic. Just want to ask this, like I said, we find out.
Okay, here comes the blue.
What do you think if you could give a picture? And this is always very difficult. There's a very popular TED talk which I always revisit. Sakin Robbins. It's very interesting because I watched it the first time in 2010, and he said, nobody knows what the world will look like in 10 years' time. Yet we're meant to be educating them for it. And it's interesting because in 10 years' time, everybody was locked at home, couldn't go out.
Yeah,
Because of COVID.
5 years ago, that was interesting.
And I remember then I was jogging on the streets of Yaba and I thought, this life.
Is this it now?
Yes, this is what just happened. Like, so we all claim that life was important, but truly, it was a lie because there's nobody,
Emptiness.
Yeah, and I just think like, so it's a weird question to ask, but it is also a question to ask because with the kind of knowledge that you have, there are obviously expectations as well as, and there's also some informed. Yes, some guessing that comes. So, what do you envisage the Nigerian comic book industry? Which, see,
now we can
do you
see
see a
that.
comic book industry?
That's the thing. In 10 years, I think we would have, by that 10th year, we would have had a thriving comic book industry. I think in the next 5 years, we're going to see a major change in the industry towards more organization, towards more value and standardizations of the industry itself, and not just comic books, but everything that shoots out from it, like illustration and storytelling that comes out from. There's going to be a lot more standardization in that. I see that happening because the people who are creating now are going to grow up themselves into certain organized structures. Creative people that are very don't like structure.
Yes.
But as they grow older, they realize, so I used to be the young guy that wants to just do my own thing. Now I'm training other young guys who just want to do their own thing, and I'm not exactly okay with it.
So
so they too will grow into that. Okay, this things need to be organized, and then the more of that happens, the more the industry itself begins to build. Like I said, someone has already built a platform right now for cataloging Nigerian comic books.
okay.
You understand, which is a beautiful idea. It's something I'm in full support of, and we are building institutions like the Akika that I'm talking about to create that platform where people can be trained and be certified to draw comic books.
Add some credibility to it.
To add some credibility to what that is, and I'm sure there are others probably doing the same thing that we're going to work together in. We are training programs to train people in comic books right now, to train the younger ones in comic books. So platforms to tell them that look, you can do this comic book. There's a way to make money with it, but this is how it's supposed to be done. You understand? I mean, I'm very particular about training children. I love talking to children. It's something that I love to do. So we've been doing a lot of that, those kind of programs to re-educate, and they will take it to schools. Because those are the kind of things that will make that future happen. The future is not something that is set by itself. It's often set by the actions we take today. And if I look at the action that is going on presently, I think we're heading to that vibrant industry that actually even produces its own external merchandise and movies and animations and things without external validation factors in. It's good to get a deal from Dark Horse or from DC to do an animation, but ultimately what I see happening is a situation where these things get localized.
And then we are making for ourselves.
Exactly. It to be an investment, not a licensing. So somebody is saying, oh, you're a student that produces animation in Nigeria, can we invest in your studio? That will become the thing. So, and that means we have to compete with Nigerian banks and investors as well, because then the viability would be what I've gotten to that point. And that means I see also the crack in the free to making money things with comic books in Nigeria. A lot more readers still prefer their comic books free.
Yes.
And even though I don't see that as a problem, I see it as that means if we have 10 million free readers, that's 10 million free
potential customers,
advertisers, and potential customers for other things as well. Yes. Advertisers will be glad to hear that you have 10 million viewers.
Yes, that view your.
That's all they need. So they might be free, but then you have value. They still have value for that. And then there are also potentials for selling other things. If you have 10 million regular viewers for your title, that means of those 10 million, 100 will buy a t-shirt. True. At least 1,000 will buy a t-shirt now. Come on.
10% will,
You understand? So I see that future, and I see the future being a lot more cultural, a lot more Nigerian. I see more Comic Cons, because as the ecosystem grows, there's going to be more need for publicity for more comic book enthusiasts, fans, and publishers to be in the same room. We just recently had the Ibrahim Comic Con.
Yes, how did that go?
I couldn't make it. It was a period, my mom died during the period. So,
my God. My condolences.
So I couldn't make it. I was invited to speak, but it was a tough period then. But a friend of mine, my partner, and the person I'm sharing this comic book ideas with, he went also, and he told me, no, it was okay, it was good. For Ibrahim,
yes.
I've been to Abuja for some Comic Con. There's one in Port Harcourt. We organized one in 2018 called Unicorn, and we're bringing another one together.
Oh yes, I attended
Unicorn. And then there's Emperor's Groove that I used to do monthly. I'm bringing Emperor's Groove back as well. And we're going to have a lot more of those kind of events to showcase that people can go to and say, you know what, comic books, that's the place to go, and people will be there. So I see a lot more of that, and I see also more corporate interest.
Oh, this is important.
Very key. Because in an interview recently, I told someone that the reason is we are not getting any kind of government involvement or corporate involvement is involvement in what? What figure are we going to give to tell them, you know what, we have 10,000 people who are willing to do this, and there's 1 million downloads per week, and telecom and all of that. If we don't have those figures, government don't think we are there. Government doesn't see us as a major economic factor. Government doesn't create
a project, really.
Government doesn't create, government regulates. And they only regulate what is big.
Yes.
Once money became everybody was producing everything, okay, government comes here. Like the same thing with stock exchange. The first stock exchange was created by businessmen.
Yes. And
the government was like, okay, you guys are throwing a lot of money around. Can we talk about this, how to regulate it? Mm-hmm. So government would step in to pump money or regulate us until we are that structured. The same goes for the corporate body. So the structure is built. And because of that, I see more corporate interest, I see more government interest. So once we have do our part, I see that future happen.
And you believe we are on the right track?
We are on the right track. On the right track.
So again, thank you so much. This has been fantastic.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. It's actually an honor to be here.
Oh, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We really hope, I'm quite sure that a lot of people will have learned a lot. I have learned a lot. I'm sure that a lot of people have learned a lot, and I feel like this will be a very good introduction to Nigerian comic books, an introduction to Nigerian creatives, that a lot of people will have a reference point.
Yeah.
When you want to get it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Were you entertained? I know I was. It's interesting the amount of things you learn from a conversation like this. I happen to be one of those people who was introduced to comic books by reading newspapers and seeing leaflets here and there. But I must confess, I am also one of those people who knew the first full-blown Nigerian comic to be what is on our board today. However, as we learned from the video, we found out that there were many different comics being created by different people in different places, and they were already exchanging them. Today in Nigeria, we have a comic book industry that has conventions in places like Ibadan and Lagos and Abuja and Port Harcourt. We have anime exchanges that go on from cities to cities, and we also have exhibitions where people come, they cosplay, they draw, they paint, and then they share what they have. Right now, if you go on YouTube, you will find videos of Nigerian animations that have been made. Of course, some by our guest today, Saga, and by other comic book creators. The point, the Nigerian comic book industry has come a very, very long way. Soon, who knows, we just might have our first comic book movie. But I want to hear from you. How were you introduced to Nigerian comic books? And what are the comic books in Nigeria that you hold dear to you? Do you know anywhere that you can go to find Nigerian comic books? Do you attend any of the conventions? Tell us in the comment section. Like, share, subscribe, and thank you for coming with us on this episode, Forgetting How to Forget and Remembering How to Remember. See you next time. I've been your host, Andy Christopher Daniel.